Hello everybody, good morning. It's Wednesday, the 26th of August, and you are part of the Pop-Kultur Nachwuchs edition 2020. This edition is really different. As you can see, we are not standing in front of you in the cinema, as we normally do, because of all the reasons you know and COVID-19. But we're very happy to not to see, but to feel you being with us. Because we are really happy that we can do an online edition this year by the help of our finance partners, Goethe Institute and the Berlin Senate and the EFRE Förderprogramm from the EU, because they also said, go ahead, do an edition online for the young people outside, and so that everybody can join these various workshops. Over 40, I think, this year you can participate. And so, yes, it's not the same as every year. By the way, I'm Katja. I'm the managing director of Music Board and the festival director. We started this 2015, and we're very happy and proud that we can do it again this year. And next year, we will see you and hear you and giving hugs to you again. And so, yeah, I will pass to Martin.
My name is Martin. I'm one of the two curators of Pop-Kultur. Christian is the other curator on my left. We had lots of fun putting the program together. We hope you'll enjoy it. It's more diverse than ever, I would say, also because no one was able to come to Berlin. We were more free in choosing tutors from all over the world. It would be great to hear from you which workshops you liked and which you didn't, because we are always trying to improve the programming. I would like to ask you to be on time. That's my motto that I always try to communicate to everyone participating. And tomorrow morning you will be seeing me and the Düsseldorf Düsterboys with an hopefully inspirational talk where we touch a lot of points that make their career. It's a group from the Ruhr area of Germany, and they've been part of Pop-Kultur for a long time. They've given workshops, they've played under a different name, they performed the commissioned work last year, so I look forward to seeing you there tomorrow morning. And now it's over to Christian.
Hello, my name is Christian, and as Martin mentioned, I'm one of the two curators, together with Martin on my right side. And we've been putting a lot of energy and creativity in this year's program under totally different circumstances. And we thought a lot how to do this program online. And I think it has a lot of advantages to you. As Martin said, you could be in Paris, in London, in Ghana, wherever you are, and join this program, which in the past editions you couldn't do because you would have to be in Berlin. And I think we've put together quite a few interesting people, and you should take as much out of the conversations and Zoom conferences that you have. Ask the people anything you want, take the chance, and also try to find out what experience you can get and what new ways you can maybe develop together with these experts, because the field of music and arts has always been something where new means of production, new forms have been developed, and I think this challenging time needs all our creativity to be put into. So for you, we have next, as Martin said, tomorrow the Düsterboys, today also an inspirational talk. We invited Danielle de Picciotto for today. She's half American, half German, and she has been part of the Berlin scene since I think the early 90s, end of 80s. She had a long career together with her ex-partner, Dr. Motte. She was the founder of the Loveparade, and then she became a musician. She was a curator. She was she still is a painter and an illustrator. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about and learn from her. So this is going to be next in a couple of minutes. Danielle de Picciotto. Enjoy that talk and the whole workshop program. Good morning, everybody. It's a shame you can't be here live with us, but that is because of the conditions everybody knows about. But still, we decided to do this workshop program as an online conference. So we are pleased that you're all here and follow us through the program. And traditionally, at the beginning of each day of the conference, we do an inspiration talk with an artist. So this morning I'm here with Danielle de Picciotto. Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
And we have a little chat about her life, her career as an artist and what she's doing. Danielle moved to Berlin in 1987. I'm right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been an artist in many different ways. She's been a singer, a violinist, a painter, an illustrator, an author, a curator, a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. And I hope you enjoy the talk. So I give the word to Danielle. You came to Berlin in 1987. What was the situation back then when you arrived?
When I arrived, it was still West Berlin. It was still an island surrounded by a wall. And it was extremely creative. I came to visit a friend. And within a couple of days, I had gotten to know the music scene and the art scene. And I was so impressed. I thought it was kind of heaven. And I just stayed. There was a room free in her loft. And so she said, if you want to stay, you can. And so I said, I am. And so I just stayed. I didn't even get furniture or my stuff until a year later.
And you said when we started earlier that in the flat there was the keyboarder of the Bad Seeds. So
yes.
you came directly into that Berlin scene end of the 80s.
Exactly. Roland Wolf was living there. And because of him, the Bad Seeds and Einstürzende-Neubauten and Kid Congo and the whole scene was always in our loft. And so basically I got to know them within a week. And most of the creative scene was, they all knew each other back then in Berlin. So if you knew one group, you basically got to know most of the others quickly too. And it was amazing. It was just so interactive. And what I really liked about Berlin was that almost everybody was working interdisciplinary. Everybody was doing music, was doing art, and was writing. And that was something that I had always done as well. But I came from New York, and in New York, people always told you, you have to decide on one thing. You have to be either an artist or a musician or a writer to be serious. And I never understood why I should do that, because for me, it all kind of belongs together. And Berlin was like that.
So would you say that was something that you kept throughout your artistic life, that interdisciplinary vibe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, the different medias are just ways of expressing the same thing in different ways. Like you have ears and you have eyes, so you automatically always use your ears and eyes. Why shouldn't I do art that has eyes and ears as well, basically? So I've always worked like that.
So when you arrived as a young woman in West Berlin, how did you find your own creative spot in that vibrant times and with the people that already did a lot of stuff? So how did that work?
I started working in cafes and clubs right away to earn money. And back then it was very popular or normal to do your art in the clubs. It was kind of like everybody's living room, because especially in the winter it was so cold that people preferred staying in the clubs than going to home where there were the coal ovens and it was always cold. And within the club scene, I just started organizing really quickly. The first club I was working at was Turbine, which was Motte's club, who then was my boyfriend. And I would organize fashion shows, concerts, parties, flea markets, like all kinds of different things where I could show my art and at the same time also present other people. I did that pretty early on.
And then, speaking of Motte, you two founded a little thing that's later became a mass event called the Loveparade. How did that came about?
Well, we started organizing early acid house parties in the Turbine and early techno parties because we were interested in electronic music. And we always wanted to go to Brazil to experience one of those parades. And one day, it was like a plan of ours to get enough money to be able to travel there. And then one day, Motte came home after DJing all night, and he said, "You know what? I had an idea. Why don't we just do it in Berlin?" And so I said, "Okay, cool. You take care of the music. I take care of the costumes." And we didn't have any money, so I think we got 2 sponsors, a glass shop, glasses. They gave us 100 marks and a record store. And we got a truck and we did it, and there were like 150 people.
So the first Loveparade was 150 people?
Yeah, it was tiny. And we didn't expect it to become that big. I mean, we didn't even actually, when we were organizing, think that it would become something regular. We just said, let's do it and see what happens. And a lot of people made fun of us. They were like, "Oh, that's so embarrassing to dance on the street." But then when we did it, we had so much fun that everybody said, "Do it again, we want to dance with you."
And that was, I mean, when early techno acid house came about, the scene was before was more like underground punk rock and roll. So how did the introduction of a total different vibe of electronic music, how did that work with the people and the art scene?
It was really interesting. With us, like for instance with Motte, who was a DJ, he had started getting bored for about a year before, because there were a lot of like rock music. Berlin was basically rock city, and there was hip-hop, early hip-hop, a lot of 70s parties, which were great. But he always got records sent to him by record companies, and he started getting really bored. He was like, "I've heard this so often." And hip-hop wasn't really his thing. And then we started reading like headlines about raves in England, and we were like, "What is that?" And so then we decided to go to London, and we went there. It was the first time Motte actually flew, because he's an original Berliner. And we went to a rave party, and we were just blown away because it was so colorful, which I liked, and it was so peaceful, but it was kind of like the music was so radical. It was kind of like mixing punk with hippie in a way, and then, minimalizing it. So we said, okay, we want to do those kind of parties. And the people that were interested in music back then pretty much understood from the early on. I mean, Westbam came to the parties, and Ralf Regitz, all the people or Tanit, all the people that would then become part of the techno scene, they immediately understood what a revolutionary thought it was to reduce it. And so it it went slowly. I remember when Dimitri opened the Tresor, he asked me, I had a band back then called Space Cowboys, hip-hop, crossover with rock. He said, "Do you want to do a bar downstairs with your music?" And we did. And so originally the Tresor had different rooms with different music, until Dimitri then said, "Let's do a techno club." So that's kind of how it happened. We had to invent it all together. So it took about 2 years, and then it became more and more clear what it is.
A lot of random things that are just happening because some people have a random idea and just do it.
Yeah.
But then I think I read you stepped out the Loveparade pretty quickly because you thought, when it became more of a commercial operation, that this was not what you wanted.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, it was around the 3rd and 4th Loveparade when it started becoming more commercial, and because it was becoming more commercial, the competition started. And I didn't like the competition mainly, because we kind of did the Loveparade because we liked parades, but also because we thought the music is great and we wanted to bring it out into the light, because the underground clubs back then were really dark in the basement. And so it was a very positive thing. And with the second Love Parade, which was after the wall came down, it was kind of East and West meeting on the same level. And it was a really wonderful feeling of really feeling how music combines everybody and there's no hierarchies. And that's what I thought was really great about it. And then with the third and fourth one, money, competition set in, and I didn't like that. It kind of, for me, it wasn't the original idea. I mean, of course everybody wants to earn money, but I didn't like the competition, because suddenly it became more about who's got the money to get a big truck and who doesn't. And so I said, I'll go on doing, I still continued doing costumes for different trucks, but after a while also it became too mass media, and I'm not really into huge crowds, so.
So do you think, when you compare today to the situation that you had met in like the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, how do you think is that compared to a situation that young people experience at the beginning of their careers and their creative energy? What do you think has changed for people that start now?
I think the main thing that's changed is that everything's become expensive. I mean, the main thing in Berlin, which was really different from all cities I knew, was that it was very cheap, but it wasn't dangerous. Usually, I come from the U.S., so if you're in a cheap place, it's dangerous usually. Poverty often carries that with it, and in Berlin, it wasn't like that. It was completely safe. I was never scared to go anywhere at night as a woman, and you could have an apartment. My first apartment cost 30 marks, and it was 600 Quadratmeter. Yeah, so that really makes a huge difference.
Did you say 600?
Yeah, that was the loft. Yeah. It was the loft where Roland and the other people were 5 people living in this room, in this space. So. And not having to worry about money is an incredible thing for culture and creativity, because everybody can just have fun, and it's not about competition, it's about just everybody's working together and experimenting, and that's why Berlin became so creative in every way. And I think nowadays, especially because the rents are so high, you know, you basically work all the time to cover costs, and it takes so much time away from you that when you do something, you have to do something with what you can earn money. And I think that's really different. You shouldn't have to do art for money. You should earn money through art, but not do it for money. That changes the quality. Yeah, I think that's the main difference.
I mean, nowadays in Berlin, we have a lot of discussion about the availability of rooms, performance rooms, rehearsing spaces, whatever. So do you think that is rooms for cheap money is one of the basic conditions to produce art for beginners, especially? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's mandatory. I mean, I remember when in Paris, the rents became so high, I think it was like 15, 20 years ago, where all musicians had to give up their rehearsal spaces, and underground experimental music basically disappeared. It's the most important thing. Because if you don't have space, I mean, Virginia Woolf already said that, a room of one's own. If you don't have space, you know, it's difficult.
Coming back to that decision to quit the Love Parade when it started to become commercial, and probably it would have been also an income operation for you and your ex-boyfriend, and how did you survive with these type of decisions, not to go commercial and always be more experimental over such a long period? How would you say that works? And what are the difficulties with it?
It's difficult. For me, my art was always the most important, so I didn't expect to earn a lot of money to be able to buy luxurious things or have a big car or whatever. It was always about having enough money to survive and to put it into my own art. I think that because I'm interdisciplinary, it helps because I could earn money through all the different things I do. So I could sell paintings, I could do a show, I could do a music video for somebody, I could write books. I think that in that case, being interdisciplinary probably helps in comparison to only doing one specific thing, because you have a lot of possibilities in comparison to only painting, which is really tough. I mean, doing concerts always brings a little bit of money, but it helps to do these different things. And I mean, I did work in clubs until 95, so I quit the Loveparade 91, 92, and then I worked until clubs until 95. I worked in Tresor and Evac, and then I decided I have to be able to live off of my art if I want to take it seriously. And I don't know, somebody once said that if you want to be successful as an artist, you have to work 10 times as much as anybody else, and you have to work 24 hours a day. And I agree with that. I mean, I don't really have, or I haven't really had many holidays or weekends. I just kind of am known as a workaholic, which doesn't bother me because I love what I do, and I do it all the time. But you really have to be dedicated 100%. Otherwise, I don't think it's possible without having a job on the side.
So there's no holidays from art?
Not really, no.
So you would advise the young people that we speak to, when they start in various fields and not to focus only on one field? Do you think that is a good strategy?
Well, I think that each field has very many possibilities. For instance, if you're doing music, it's probably really good to learn engineering so that you can do all kinds of production things which you can earn money with besides only composing your own music. So in every area you can do film music, you can do theater music. Try and see all the different possibilities and try to be as flexible as possible. I think only being a composer nowadays to start out with is really difficult.
Do you think that the basic conditions for musicians and artists have changed with also the necessity to present yourself like on social media and to be your own marketing force and whatever? Do you think that has changed to the 90s and 80s? Absolutely.
I mean, in the 80s, there were so many things that were still being financed, so it was really easy to have a booker, a label, an advertising agency. You had a whole group of people that were helping you. Of course, they were all earning money off of you too. And nowadays, you kind of have to do all of that yourself unless you're really successful. But I mean, I think one thing that I've really learned through this whole COVID situation is that through the internet, I think that we've only been using it 1/3 of what it can actually do. And I think that's a whole area of promotion that can be used a lot differently than it has been up to now. I mean, for me, for instance, I suddenly realized that, when I do a show, when I do a concert, I maybe have 100, 300, 400 people in the audience. If I do it on internet, I can reach the whole world. And I think that's been used way too little. So in a way, it's become more work, which is, sometimes I have the feeling I'm doing 10 jobs at once in comparison to back then where I was just an artist. But you can earn more money because there's not all these people taking percentages, and you can reach a lot more people.
But I think that the difficulty, although through the Corona times when everybody started to do bedroom concerts, is how do you monetize your work on the internet? Did you find your way to monetize your work on the internet?
Well, one thing that really worked was Bandcamp. I think the really great thing about also this COVID situation is that because so many people weren't rushing around all the time, there was so much more awareness for artists, and people were actually watching what we do and reading what we do and thinking about how to support artists, something you're always hoping for normally. And so, for instance, when we post videos, we always write, if you like our show, then why don't you buy the album as you would after a live show on Bandcamp? And people actually do. So, but I do think that, doing bedroom concerts, I do think that one has to make a little bit more effort than some people do in hyping it and making it look good, because the eyes...
Having flowers.
Yes. The eyes are just as important, you know. And I've seen some musicians that are amazing, you know, musicians doing music, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, come on, you could have at least made a little effort in the way it looks. Because that also, especially because it's the digital and it's not three-dimensional, you're looking at it in a different way, and it really should look fun.
Okay, I want to come to another interesting point in your career, that is nomadic lifestyle. With your current partner, private and in art and music, Alexander Hacke, you've been traveling as a nomadic couple all over the world. How did that start, and how did you get this idea?
Well, before we did that, we were living in a house in Berlin, which had a couple of floors, and we had our studios and everything. But we realized that to be able to pay the rent, which was going up higher and higher, we basically had to work all the time, and we're investing all of our money into this house, which was empty because we were always touring. Yeah. So we said, this is ridiculous. Maybe we can find a place where the situation is more like Berlin in the 80s, where the rents are low, and so you only spent like 1/4 of what you earn on rent, and the rest you can invest in art or, you know, life. And so we decided to give up everything, just keep a storage room in Berlin, and travel the world and see if we could find something like that. We didn't realize that gentrification was happening everywhere. We thought it was only happening in Berlin. And then when we started traveling, we realized, of course, it's everywhere, and it's a lot worse in most places than in Berlin. So that was quite a revelation. But it's work. We had to always organize a year and ahead, because if you don't have a home, you know, if you don't have a tour or a residency or a commissioned work, you're suddenly left without earning money. And then if you don't have a home, you have to stay in a hotel or and it gets really expensive. So it was a lot of work preparing that, and we tried to do it so that we were always doing one of these things. And we did it for about 6 years, and couldn't find a place that was basically, you know, low rents and easier living for artists. And it was kind of, it was very illuminating, because being a nomad, you have to live completely different than if you have a home. I mean, you're always traveling, you're constantly meeting new people, and it was very inspiring because, you know, we're constantly doing new things, but it was also very exhausting. And so we stopped drinking, because we noticed if we drink as much as we did before, we wouldn't be able to do it, because it's so exhausting. I mean, there's constant jet lag, and we became vegan, and just became really healthy to be able to do that. And 4 years ago, we got studios in Berlin again, because we started doing more and more things in Berlin again. Also because we really liked the social and political way that culture is treated here. We realized, in comparison to other places, artists are actually treated very well here. And so we said, we actually want to not only benefit from that, but also support it. And so we're basically back here, but still traveling a lot.
So it's like there's this children's book, Oh, wie schön ist Panama?
Yeah.
It's about, I think it's a bear who just travels the world and finds out at home it's the best.
Yeah.
It's kind of that?
It was kind of like that. I mean, we did stay in a lot of places for a long time, and we went to Australia, we went to New Zealand, we were a lot in the US, and we just saw, you know, how important, we realized how important health, you know, things are, and grants and social support. And it is really good here. So we thought that's actually something that we want to help support in a way too, by contributing, organizing things and doing things.
Speaking of the lifestyle, Would you advise anyone doing all this, being a couple? Does that work? Is that sometimes difficult? He doesn't listen now. You can be very honest.
It can be really tough. I mean, we were together 24 hours a day for 10 years. And you learn how to deal with it in different ways. For instance, headphones are really good. Everybody can hear their own music and you can go into your own space. We learned that if you're traveling like that all the time, it's really important not to concentrate on the other, but to concentrate on yourself. So we learned that was very interesting too in being a nomad and how to deal with things like that. And it actually, it could have destroyed our relationship because sometimes it was really difficult because we just got so sick of each other. But on the other hand, it actually strengthened it because we learned how to deal with it and how to, certain tricks on how to make it easier. It's a really interesting experience. I think that it would actually be good for everybody to do it, but to not get lost in the process of traveling and just having fun, but actually, really developing something within yourself artistically and also socially. You have to take it seriously. It's not just going on tour. It's different not having a home. It really is. Of course, our travels were privileged in comparison to people that are fleeing countries because of politics, but it really does make a difference not to have a home to come back to. It changes your life. It changed our life.
And as artists that put out music, what are the structures that you use to release your music, to distribute your music, to book your shows? How does that all work? Also with not being permanently at one place.
Well, I book our shows. I've always kind of been an artist and learned how to organize things very early on. I had a gallery for a time because I thought it was interesting to get to know the other side of art, which helped me a lot, and it's something I can really recommend. I don't think that the typical kind of artist that says, oh, I'm an artist, I can't think about money, is really old-fashioned. I honestly do. I think it's important nowadays to be aware of structures because it can save you. And sometimes when I see artists that think it's not important, I'm kind of like, I'm sorry, but if you don't think it's important, I can't really take you seriously either. Although it doesn't really have anything to do with the art itself. It's like a way of seeing reality which influences your art in a good way, I think.
So you would say controlling your own infrastructures, business structures is very important for an artist.
Yeah, and almost all artists I know that are successful do that. They're very aware of how they want to sell their art and how they want to sell themselves and how they want to have everything structured. And basically you can only do that yourself. Of course, if you have the possibility of having an assistant or a manager that understands you, that's great, or a booker. But it's very difficult nowadays, and so I personally prefer doing it on my own to be sure that it's done in a way which is okay for what I do. Because I'm an experimental artist. The music I do cannot really be put into a certain kind of genre. So I really want to be able to promote it or place it in places that are appropriate for it. And those are the places where it usually is understood best too and has the best results. So, I do wish I had a booker and, people that would help me more. But as long as I don't have, the possibilities of finding that or paying that, then I can do it on my own.
Also with the releases? How do you do that?
Well, the releases, it depends. I've worked with Monika, with Gut von Guts
who's been
label.
A long time. She's the same. She's an artist, label owner. She's been working. She had a radio show.
Exactly. Yeah. We've been friends since early 90s. We started the Ocean Club together, actually. I've done work together with her. She's released some of my solo albums. Then Alex and I release our albums on neubauten.org, the record label of Neubauten, which they also do on their own. So they have their own record label. Or I release something on Bandcamp, because that nowadays really works.
Yeah, we're going to have a workshop in the workshop program with Erin, who's the wife of Blixer, who runs Neubauten. And, will be a very interesting workshop, because it'll be about a supporter model that I think they started very early on. How, I mean, now it's very common with crowdfunding, but at that time that things were not existing. So to involve the fans in the production, and also in getting the money together for the production, I think these things have become much more important, as you want to be independent from structures, and some structures also faded and disappeared in the music industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing I also think is really important to realize, like the industry always tells you, you have to be, you have to reach millions of people. I don't believe that. I think that it's okay if you reach a certain amount of people, that, let's say 300 people in each town. If you have 300 people in a show, or 500 people even, but 300 is okay too, that really love your music, they're going to support you so that you can survive. And all these social media platforms are really good to keep like a personal relationship with them to a certain extent, and it kind of makes them feel part of it, which is the same thing that Erin does with the supporter projects, because if you feel part of something, you have a different responsibility than if it's a neutral, like anonymous artist that you think, well, they're earning millions, so why do I have to? And I think that's something that's really important nowadays, to make things more familiar again, because the internet has this touch of being anonymous, and of turning that into familiarity is really good for both sides. It can help artists survive, be it music or art or video. And I've noticed that especially now during the COVID, because a lot of people that I do have contact with like that, they were the ones that reached out and said, are you guys doing okay? I'd like to buy a drawing of yours now, or I want to buy a record. And they felt responsible, And we feel responsible to do good work for them. So it's kind of a give and take, which is really nice. I think that's a lot nicer than saying, oh, I have to become like, mainstream pop star to be able to survive. No, you don't. You can do it with a small number of people in your surrounding.
So that is community building, and also taking your fans serious as being on the same level, and not that old, here's the artist, there's the audience kind of model.
Yeah, that's totally my thing too. And I mean, that's basically what Amanda Palmer also, always keeps on saying, that it's a give and take. It's not only taking from people that buy your records, I think that's really important, to keep that perspective of that we're all in the same boat together, kind of.
I think that is a very good last word. We're all in the same boat. Thank you, Danielle, for this talk. I hope you enjoyed the talk and you have some interesting perspectives from it. Now it's time to go into your digital workshops, and I hope you enjoy the program that we all prepared for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.